MAGA is running the entire country and still crying victim. Let's talk about it.
Adam, do you want to?
I disagree entirely. This administration is absolutely looking at immigration through a racial lens. You can look at the temporary protected status they have removed from many groups, all minority groups. You can look at the refugee status they are allowing from South Africa. They are banning countries from coming in, or people from countries that are black or that look a certain way, but white refugees are the only ones that are being allowed to come in. Stephen Miller's guidance of this immigration policy is absolutely racial.
We have to get to student questions.
Okay.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Policy Vault. I'm Arthur, and today we are diving into a debate that aired on PBS between progressive commentator Adam Mockler and far-right MAGA pundit Natalie Winters. The topic was immigration, and the clash that followed was something worth breaking down piece by piece. We are going through the clips together, and I have plenty of thoughts to add along the way. Let's get into it.
In November, President Trump had a really public falling out with Marjorie Taylor Greene, who criticized President Trump over his handling of the Epstein files, foreign interventions, failing to extend the Affordable Care Act subsidies. And ultimately, she said, you know, I am America first, not MAGA. She feels, perhaps like you do or not, she feels that the Trump administration has abandoned some of its America first policies. Is she right?
I think it's too soon to tell. And I think that to answer that question definitively now is to imply that politics is stagnant and it can't be in flux. Like, there are issues where...
But is she onto something? I mean, it does sound like you agree that there's
and for people who watch War Room, but I think where people maybe misunderstand, and where maybe I would humbly and respectfully push back with what Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying, is that I think to just capitulate and say it's over is to give up, when the Trump administration has shown that they are receptive to the sort of grassroots, their base, calling them out. And I think that people who just want to throw in the towel, that's not the American fighting spirit. I don't think that that's what composes the people who make up the War Room audience. They're willing to make phone calls. They're willing to get involved.
I think when you say you're putting America first, what I'm actually hearing is you're trying to pull the Republican Party in a more radical direction. Putting America first is allowing...
You can call it radical. She would call it populist.
Well, populist, but not populist.
I care about borders.
Well, the majority of Americans think that legal immigration is something that is okay because it benefits the United States. Republicans view immigrants in a fundamentally different way than they view everybody else. You guys view immigrants as net drains on the society, but that is not borne out. You can look at anybody as a drain on the society. I take up housing, you take up electricity, you take up space on the road. So when you say that immigrants take up housing and immigrants take up electricity, it's sort of a myopic view, and they take up jobs because they create. Immigrants also create a lot for this country. I mean, immigrants are net taxpayers. For a personal anecdote, my grandpa moved here from Syria in the late 90s, and you could argue, yeah, he was taking up space. Why was this person from Syria taking up space in the United States? We shouldn't have let him here. But my grandpa has built a business that now employs dozens of people, that feeds dozens of families. I grew up in Indiana, where my community was full of a lot of Muslims who became heart doctors or surgeons or very productive members of society. 30% of working physicians in this country are immigrants, are people who are coming here to help Americans. That is putting America first. How are physicians that are immigrants helping Americans not putting America first?
Hold on, don't take that. I'm going to ask a question. What I would like you to respond to is there a positive story about immigrants who aspire to live the American dream, that are living it in a way that isn't undermining the American experience for Americans already here? Is that, I mean, do you subscribe to that notion in any way? Or do you reject it?
Of course there are some, but the way that you're seeing legal immigration happen now is just historically, empirically extremely different from the waves that you saw before. You used to have an on period of people coming in and an off period, and the people who would come in would assimilate. Much like your grandfather. They would actually, I think, enjoy American culture because you had to. Now, I think you have this sort of weird, perverse left-wing ideology where we're told that assimilation is racist, and I don't think that that works. And I think when you talk about the immigration issue, it's like we have to do this performative, to some extent, ritual where we have to praise immigrants as like the greatest thing that has ever happened in this country. I'm not bashing or negging all immigrants, but I also think we can appreciate the contributions that Americans have made to this country. The American people have been abused by the legal immigration system. And sure, are there some immigrants that are good? Yes, but there's also a lot of problems with our immigration system. It's a problem of scale. It's too many people.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to show you guys a clip of William F. Buckley Jr. Have you ever heard of him?
Yeah.
Okay, so William F. Buckley Jr. hosted a program called Firing Line for 33 years. In 1979, he actually tackled the question of immigration. How many people should be allowed in, and from where? Listen to what he says in this exchange with the first Latino commissioner of the Immigration and Naturalization Service. Take a look.
Well, is the question purely a numerical question, or is it one that has also to do with ethnic balance?
I think it has to do with the whole vision of the country.
If my memory is correct, it was only about 13 or 14 years ago that we officially renounced the preference had previously been written into the law for two groups. Number one, Western Europeans. Number two, residents of this hemisphere. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've gradually moved toward a non-racial type policy.
Okay, so he's saying we have gradually in our immigration policy moved towards a non-racial policy. There is a sense that sort of implicitly we are moving towards a racial policy for immigration under this administration. The criticism is that the Trump administration wants a whiter America. Is that fair?
I think that's absolutely absurd. The idea of populism, economic nationalism, is maximizing the value of what it means to be an American citizen. I don't care what race you are. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care what your ethnicity is. I don't care about any of that. I care that first and foremost, you are an American citizen. The American people, my war room audience, they don't care about immigration because of race. They care about it because of American identity, of which we are all Americans, I assume, in here. And that the idea that our government should not be making our lives more difficult.
Adam, do you want to?
I disagree entirely. This administration is absolutely looking at immigration through a racial lens. You can look at the temporary protected status they have removed from many groups, all minority groups. You can look at the refugee status they are allowing from South Africa. They are banning countries from coming in, or people from countries that are black or that look a certain way, but white refugees are the only ones that are being allowed to come in. Stephen Miller's guidance of this immigration policy is absolutely racial.
We have to get to student questions.
Okay.
Adam Mockler is not just right here. He is saying what a lot of people are thinking, but are afraid to put into plain words. The idea that there is no racial dimension to how this administration decides who gets to enter this country and who gets turned away, that argument does not survive even the lightest scrutiny. Donald Trump made his preferences clear a long time ago, and he was not sitting around daydreaming about people flying in from Norway. And then you look at what this administration actually did, extending protected status to white Christian South Africans, and suddenly, the pattern is not just implied anymore. It is written in policy. Natalie Winters throwing out the line that some immigrants are probably fine, that is an echo of something we have heard before. Trump stood at a podium before his first term and dragged an entire nationality through the mud, then tossed in a half-hearted afterthought about some of them being decent people. Winters is running the same playbook with a slightly cleaner coat of paint. And that line about the left treating immigration like it is the greatest thing ever. Let us think about that for a second. This land was already home to people before anyone else arrived. Native Americans carry a history that makes that talking point collapse immediately. But beyond that, the very people whose descendants now wave flags and demand closed borders, the Italians, the Irish, the ones who were not even considered white when they arrived, they built this country too. They were otherized, mocked, and feared the same way MAGA otherizes immigrants today. Stephen Miller and Trump did not invent this playbook. They just dusted it off. And the goal has always been the same. Decide who counts as American by deciding who looks the part.
Olivia Anstadt, freshman political science major. So what's your question?
Thank you for having me. So I think we can all agree that social media is inherently biased towards extremists and very controversial people, seeing as their content invokes emotion and therefore they attract a much larger audience. And that being said, how do we now as a society recenter our popular media around truth, diversity, and good intent in this age that is so fueled by bias and prejudice?
That's a really good question.
Take it.
I don't have the exact answer. I mean, that's a really good question, but I know exactly what you were talking about. The algorithms currently incentivize and promote the most outrageous content. I think this gives us a warped perception of each other, and I think it quite frankly allows extremists to control the media message, and it elects extremists. We are currently living in an environment where the social media incentivization of radicalization is beginning to translate into our electeds being more radical because they're using social media, therefore they're giving more and more radical takes, and they're elected.
What do you think about the algorithms and their ability to potentially throttle or incentivize certain actors?
Well, I think you got to differentiate it between Elon purchasing Twitter and post.
Definitely.
And I think that a lot of this stuff started in 2017 after President Trump won, where you saw a lot of the elites, Republican and Democrat, it's no secret that the Republican establishment did not want him to win, I think start to be very fearful of free speech on the internet. And after that, that was the advent of what we call the censorship industrial complex, where you saw the propping up, almost overnight, of this whole entire grant-making industry to universities, to NGOs, to the sort of idea of media literacy, where they were funding studies not just to censor misinformation, but these very radical ideas of pre-bunking and debunking misinformation around topics that we all in this room would not agree on are actually misinformation. And that stuff was leveraged to, I don't know, censor the sitting president of the United States and rip him off of like every social media network ever, even probably Uber Eats. So that was the culmination.
Didn't work, did it though?
Well, that's because, but this is the point, because the censorship is not actually of falsehoods. It's censorship of ideas that threaten the power of the current ruling elite, the regime. Whether or not they think their ideas are true or not, it doesn't matter. They use censorship as a...
Let us take a moment to sit with what Natalie Winters is actually arguing here, because it requires a special kind of mental gymnastics to pull off with a straight face. The man she is defending holds the highest office on the planet. His party runs Congress. He commands the most powerful military and economic apparatus in human history. And yet somehow the framing is still that he is the scrappy rebel fighting against entrenched power. That is not a political argument. That is a fairy tale being told to people who stopped asking questions. And this censorship narrative that keeps getting recycled, let us be honest about what it is covering for. Donald Trump does not have a silencing problem. Donald Trump has a credibility problem, and those are two very different things. When a sitting president goes on record claiming that immigrants are consuming household pets, that is not a policy position. That is a lie so detached from reality that it would have ended any other political career before the sentence was even finished. Trump has said 1,000 things that should have been disqualifying. The cats and dogs moment is just one entry in a very long catalog. Pushback against deliberate falsehoods is not censorship. It is accountability. It is what a functioning press and an informed public are supposed to do when someone in power abuses the platform to spread fear through fiction. But MAGA operatives like Natalie Winters have made a career out of dressing up that accountability as persecution, because the victimhood story is what keeps the base engaged and the donations flowing. And the censorship claim itself falls apart the moment you look at the scale of Trump's media presence. There is arguably no individual in modern history whose words have been more documented, more broadcast, more analyzed, and more amplified than Donald Trump. The argument that his voice is being suppressed is not just weak. It is laughable. What Winters and others like her are really upset about is not that Trump cannot speak. It is that people are finally talking back. And that is really what this entire exchange comes down to. MAGA has built an empire on the illusion of victimhood while holding every lever of power in Washington. They control the presidency, the Congress, and the loudest megaphones in media, and they still want you to believe they are the underdogs. Natalie Winters did not come to that PBS desk to have an honest debate. She came to perform a script, and Adam Mockler saw right through every line of it. What are your thoughts on how MAGA continues to weaponize the censorship myth even while running the entire country? Do you think that narrative is finally starting to lose its grip, or is it still working on the people it was designed to fool? Let me know everything you are thinking in the comments below. And if this breakdown gave you something to chew on, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because that support genuinely keeps this work going. Until next time, this has been the Policy Vault, where we cut through the noise so you do not have to. Thanks for watching.